Hello, welcome to Cover, Catechism of the Catholic Church. My name is Jillian and I am a Father Corby missionary and as always, happy to be here today. Now, last time we talked about man's natural desire for God, the fact that man is actually a religious being, and the fact that because of the obstacles of evil due to the fall, it can be difficult for man to find God, to find him. However, God never lets down. While we may reject him, he never rejects us. And so there is this eternal call to know him and to love him and to serve him that we are given from our birth. So the next question is if we can come to know God, then how? What are the ways to come to know God? Now, these ways are called often proofs, but we have to realize that the proof isn't a proof as in the natural sciences, but it's a proof, but it's really more the ways to come to know God. That is, as paragraph 31 says, converging and convincing arguments which allow us to attain certainty about the truth. So when we talk about proofs, we talk about ways, we're talking kind of about the same thing. Now, there are many different arguments for coming to know God, for arguments about the existence of God. One of the ones that you are probably familiar with are the 5 ways of St. Thomas Aquinas. Keep in mind that these aren't the only 5 ways of coming to know God that Thomas Aquinas had laid out, but in question 2, article 3, these are laid out and they're very popular. It's coming to know God through movement, becoming, contingency, order, and beauty. Now that's in paragraph 32. Now these arguments, however, don't lie only in St. Thomas, but St. Thomas finds them in other places, including previous saints and writings from the past. Now, all of these arguments are under the umbrella of what would be called the Cosmological Argument. Now, there are many other ways, right? So just to name a few would be the Ontological Argument. An example of that would be St. Anselm, who says that God is that which all conceived perfection. So God is that which has all conceived perfection. Another argument that is popular with St. Augustine is the Psychological Argument. St. Augustine uses that when he says that 2 + 2 = 4. And so we can come to the objective truth about 2 + 2 = 4. But who is the giver of that truth? Who is the objective truth over all things? That truth is God. Otherwise, how would we know with certainty that 2 + 2 = 4? And where did that nature come from, that 2 + 2 = 4? And then, of course, there's other arguments. People like Kant argued from the will and good, and of many, many, many others. There's even lists of 26 different arguments for coming to know God. So don't feel like you're alone. It's definitely something that people have been studying and pursuing their whole lives. And since the beginning of the church, men have been trying to prove to people that God exists. And one of the there's the moral argument, right? We know right from wrong. So who is the bearer of all right and wrong? That is God. Keep in mind that most people aren't going to be convinced necessarily about God's existence right away, especially through arguments, but rather through coming to know Jesus Christ. And so we see that said in paragraph 35. Let me just go ahead and read that. He says, "But for man to be able to enter into real intimacy with God, God willed both to reveal himself to man and to give him the grace of being able to welcome this revelation in faith. And that however, though we need revelation and the real intimacy comes through revelation, that personal encounter with Jesus Christ, the proofs, however, can predispose one to faith, and they can help us to see that the faith is not opposed to reason." Personally, I've had experiences of doubting God's existence, and I can go through a proof or two and realize, okay, it's not against reason that I believe that God exists and that God truly does exist. And if God exists, then he is good. And if he is good, then I have nothing to worry about. So that's kind of my train of thought, that I invite you to think about what your train of thought is when you might be doubting God or doubting his ways. Now, the Holy Mother Church speaks with certainty that we can that God can be known with certainty from the created world by the natural light of human reason. So, because they're able to know through the natural reason, they're able to welcome God's revelation. That's why, as we said previously, the proofs of the existence of God can actually act to predispose one to faith. And yet we find ourselves with many, many difficulties. Paragraph 37, the human mind in its turn is hampered in the attaining of such truths through the senses, imagination, disordered appetite. So it happens that men in such matters easily persuade themselves that they would not like to be true is false, or at least doubtful. So in other words, I might hear the truth, but the false seems more comfortable, seems more real, and so I can convince myself that what is false is true and what is true is false. And this is something we need to be careful of, even those who are practicing the faith, to stay on top of what the church teaches and believe in God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And this is why man needs revelation, right? To keep him. Revelation, we have the scriptures, we have the teachings of the church, we have different things that have revealed God to us. And through this revelation, we're able to be at ease and know with firm certainty, paragraph 38, and with no admixture of error. So we're not relying only on human natural reason, proofs that God exists, but we're relying more heavily even on the fact that God has said that he exists, that Revelation tells us that God exists. And so we can rely on that with certainty and no admixture of error. I just want you to take the opportunity to think about what it is and how you know that God exists, and share with somebody your experience of why God exists. Share with somebody your natural reason, your experience of faith, because that is how we become the first evangelizers, is to preach right away the revelation. Because in today's day and age, people don't know Jesus, they don't know the story, they don't know what's in the Bible. And so we begin with baby steps, both for our own health and for the good of others. So this again was paragraphs 31 to 38. And we will see you next time. God bless.